All right. Good morning, everyone. Let me even fix this typo just as we're starting. It is June 2024. So this is the tenX Talk series through the Orlando tech community. These are several different fireside chats with founders and educational topics and industry panels that we're pursuing to bring content that's relevant to Orlando and Central Florida's startup and growth ecosystem. Just to start with OTC, we do have a couple things to mention. One is next Thursday, there's a 10X Tech Wall Street takeover. This is kind of one of our bigger social networking events of the year. We do this a few times a year, but there will be 300, 400 people downtown. We'll take over the whole block on Wall Street. And this is brought by UCF and Orlando Tech Community and Health Compass Consulting. And then we're co-sponsoring with the National Center for Simulation and ODEVs. And if you are interested and not a member in OTC, you can find out more information on innovateorlando.io/OTC. And then the other thing is we do have a newsletter now that does do a very good job of kind of aggregating a lot of the community events and activities that are happening in our backyard. So I would encourage you all to go on innovateorlando.com and look into membership and look into this newsletter as well. And then if you're interested in coming out next Thursday, we will all be there. So we'd love to see you. Enough of that. Today we're really excited to have a panel of some of the top early stage companies in Central Florida's aerospace and space economy. We have Eric from Vertigo Aero, CEO and founder. This is a company that's building hybrid power plant systems for the aerospace industry. We have Clint, who's CEO of NewView. They're using LiDAR satellite technology to perform annual 3D mapping of the Earth's surface and providing geospatial data. We have Jane Pointer, the CEO of Space Perspective. That's a company that's the world's first carbon neutral space flight experience company. They're on a mission to make space travel more affordable and more accessible than ever. And then Enrique from Ocelot. This is a company that's doing electronics engineering tailored to the aerospace, defense, and eVTOL industry. These are all the CEOs and co-CEOs and founders of these companies. So some of the leading companies combined have raised over $100 million of capital from investors, and we have all the founders and CEOs of the companies here. So really excited about the panel that we've pulled together, and this is all about the innovations of aerospace. So in space tech. So what I'm going to do is kind of start and go one by one, and would love for each of the founders to go through maybe a minute or two on what your company does, what makes it special and unique, and where you're at from a kind of traction, maturity, funding perspective. And I would encourage you all not to be kind of shy here because I'm volunteering you almost for being resources and potential mentors and accessible within our community. And you guys have accomplished a lot, so I think it's important to broadcast that. So I'll start with Eric from Vertigo.
Excellent. Thank you, Ken. And yeah, just to introduce Vertigo Aero and what we do, we are a leader in hybrid electric power for the next generation of electrified aircraft. And really what that means is the emergence of electrification is hitting aerospace very differently than it's hit the automotive industry. It's very important, but it's really the electric motor that's driving new types of drones and aircraft being possible and new missions, both for civilian and military purposes. And one of the biggest challenges is how do you power those motors? And for short range missions and for, less capable aircraft, batteries work. As you get beyond that, there needs to be a different solution. What we do is we bring together some of the revolutions in sustainable aviation fuels, replacement liquid fuels that are more sustainable than jet fuel. And we allow those liquid fuels to be used in a hybrid electric power plant that powers electric aircraft. And therefore, we get the benefits of electrification and the benefits of sustainable fuels in the same situation. And we're really kind of the bridge between those two things. We're a company that was started in 2017 in Daytona Beach, Florida. We're in the research park over here at the Embry-Riddle campus. We raised a Series A with Raytheon in the lead in the middle of 2022. We're doing a bridge round to accelerate some of our critical projects that have come up since then, where we've kind of added to our portfolio, and it's time to step on the gas for those. And we're headed towards a larger scale B round in the middle of next year in 2025. So we've got just over 30 people, mostly located in Daytona Beach. And we're really happy to be part of the growing aerospace economy in Florida. And there's a lot of activity over here in Daytona as this research park continues to grow. You know, we were one of the launch tenants of the research park over here 7 years ago, and it's been really impressive to see how much this community has grown since then, and all of the activity with the startups that have come in around us. So we're excited about the path that we're on, and really happy to be here today.
And you guys are generating revenue. You've had both government contracts, commercial revenue.
That's correct. We've got government contracts with multiple Department of Defense agencies, and we've delivered power plants to flight test programs for commercial applications in multiple places around the country. Happen to be doing a bunch of work with folks out in the Silicon Valley area. Florida is a hotbed for aerospace, but there's also a lot going on out in California, and we've kind of built a bridge between the two. And so, yeah, we've got some great traction going on there. And we've always focused on balancing investment rounds with ensuring that we're generating external revenue and other non-dilutive funding to make sure that our investors are getting the biggest bang for the buck possible, and that we're growing the company as fast as possible. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Awesome. And then Clint, tell us about NewView. Tell us about I know you raised a nice round of financing and kind of are up and running now.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. So yeah, Clint Grauman, CEO and co-founder of NewView. We're building the world's first constellation of satellites that image with LiDAR. We're one of one in the world, and the whole purpose of what we're building is to bring accuracy to the world's geospatial data. Current data, like optical or synthetic aperture radar, is often incorrect by about the height of a basketball goal, or even as much as 30 feet when it comes to radar. So what we're building, as you see on the right, is an accuracy model to about 10 centimeters in vertical accuracy, which means when we're flying planes, we're measuring the height of mountains, when we need to know where water flows. All of those things will be much more accurate than ever thought possible. We're setting out with the goal to build 20 of these things so that we can image the planet up to once per year and revisit any place on Earth in the most important regions up to 4 times per day. Last year we did about 1.4 million in revenue. This year we'll do close to 2 million in revenue. We'll probably hit 20 million next year. We've got $1.1 billion in letters of intent, and the revenue is a reflection of us starting to execute against those. So yeah, happy to be here and appreciate the opportunity to be part of the panel, Ken.
Awesome. All right. Jane, you got some beautiful pictures here. I know that you've raised I think over 50 million and have millions in pre-order. So I would love for everyone to hear about Space Perspective.
Good morning, everybody. Yes, I'm Jane Pointer. I am founder, co-CEO of Space Perspective. And you are looking at a real spaceship on the right there. I have to say real because rendering is so good nowadays that could be a rendering, but it's actually sitting in our hangar waiting to fly soon. So we are indeed a space travel company. We're a very different kind of space travel company, though. I think most of us think about it as rocket-based, whether that's SpaceX or some of the other rocket-based suborbital flights that are going on. And we use enormous balloons to very gently take a capsule to space. Our go-to-market product is for 8 customers and a captain. You can see on the bottom left there is what we call our Space Lounge that's inside Spaceship Neptune's capsule. And the whole idea here is that we're making space accessible in ways that heretofore just hasn't been, right? Only 700 people have ever been to space, roughly speaking, which is an infinitesimally small number of people. And we're completely, radically changing that. So in our very first year of operations, starting next year in 25, we will be taking as many people to space in a single year as has been in the entire history of humanity. And it's because a number of reasons. Yes, our price point is much lower than anybody else. So we're currently $125,000 a seat, as opposed to 700,000 or millions and millions of dollars if you want to go to the International Space Station. But it's much more than that. The value prop here is for the customers is also that it is very accessible in every way, right? So it's incredibly gentle. If you can get on an aircraft, you can get on Spaceship Neptune. There is a bar on board and a loo and Wi-Fi, which is fun, but it's also iconic of the experience, which is to say it's approachable. We have sold almost 1,800 tickets. Everybody has put a deposit down, some as much as the full ticket price if you want to be one of the early few to fly, or you can put as little as $1,000 down, and that puts you all the way at the end of the queue. We have dynamic pricing, and so of course every inventory of tickets, we still have some of those inventories left, so you too could buy an early ticket, and actually we're going to be putting our tickets up soon. So we have 200 million, over 200 million in backlog, and we are very soon going to be beginning our demonstration flights this year, and so stay tuned. It's getting very exciting. We are also in a bridge round with our Series B planned for later this year. Happy to connect with anyone interested in hearing about what we're up to there.
Awesome. And then last but not least, Enrique, the company, we'll talk about that in a little bit, moved some of the operations from South America right to Daytona Beach. But let's start with Ocelot. What is Ocelot for those that don't know?
Hello, Ken. My name is Henrique. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Ocelot. And that's correct. I'm Brazilian. We created the company down there in Brazil. I used to work for Embraer for 15 years. And I just realized that I was looking for a bigger challenge to create my own company. And it comes up that we quit Embraer. We start our business down there in Brazil, focusing on the international market. And when we start to get revenue from the international customers, we decide to move to the United States. We make a very deep exercise trying to figure out the best place to establish in the United States. And it comes up that Central Florida would be the best place for us to be. And that's an evolving market in terms of their space and defense market sectors, I mean. And we are together with Eric Vertigo in Micaplex, that's inside the Embry-Riddle University. So Ocelot is in the business of the zero net emissions solutions. So we are here to design devices that make it possible to move from fossil fuel to a more sustainable solution in terms of fuel. So we believe in hybrid propulsion system. We believe in a full electric propulsion system. And as part of the job, as you're going to see in these pictures, we design as well some solutions for testing and measurement, because in the quest of designing such devices, we figure out that we need testing devices to test those ones. And we are talking about a novel design that will require different types of mindset to be designed. And it comes that the test and measurement would be paramount for that. As I mentioned before, Ocelot is now established in Daytona since 2021. We are bootstrapping and still a profitable company. So we love to go for grants from the government, like the SBIR and this sort of things. We are not avoiding investors by any chance, but that's a way we are targeting this market so far.
Awesome. What I'd love to do is maybe just 30 seconds, maybe a minute on if we could just kind of go in order. And as the late great Kobe Bryant said, job's not done, but you've all made some like really meaningful progress and achieved some milestones. And a lot of the companies that or founders that might be on are probably a little earlier than you, and maybe facing some challenges that you had, maybe going from zero to first base, right? And you've all kind of cleared that hurdle, and you're moving forward towards the really kind of growth and scale and launch of the businesses. So if you could just maybe less than a minute on what inspired you to start your companies, and then what challenges you faced early on and overcame during those initial days of getting the business up and moving forward. Clint, you want to start?
Sure. So the inspiration for what we do at NewView really came from 15 years in the market, working in all different types of phenomenologies, from optical to synthetic aperture radar, thermal, hyperspectral, all these different data sets. And for that decade and a half of doing this, what we consistently heard from our partners and customers around the world was that they needed more accuracy. They needed more LiDAR data. Sometimes they expressed it in the requirements. Sometimes they expressed it very, very overtly of saying the word, we need LiDAR data, words, we need LiDAR data. But really that was a driver for understanding that there was a problem in the market that we currently knew the best in the world and worked in, but the only solution was from an aircraft or a UAV. And when we decided to do this, we did some deep research to see just how big the problem was, and only 5% of the planet had ever been mapped with LiDAR, and all of that was from aircraft. And an aircraft can map about 100 kilometers per week, maybe a little bit more, but our satellite constellation will be able to do about 3 million square kilometers per week. And what that does is that really opens up the supply in the market, brings down the price to make it more affordable at large scale, and lets us know more about the world than has ever been possible before. And so with that, I think we were the opposite of most startups in all of the ecosystems. Like, we heard the problem over and over, and then decided to design the sensor that meets the needs. And most of the time in this industry, you see someone with a cool idea for a sensor, then they try to figure out the market. And it's the exact opposite approach for us. And so we've had a lot of commercial success already. That's really starting to ramp up and hit the J curve for us. And I think we've gotten to first, using your baseball analogy, for those that follow baseball, we've gotten to first, we've gotten to second, and now we're trying to steal home from second base, right? So that's really where we are in the business, and it's a challenging market. We're all trying to work together, but I'm a believer that a rising tide lifts all boats, and I really see the community coming together to support what we're doing.
And Jane, what drove you to help found Space Perspective, and then what were some of those early challenges that you overcame?
So my co-founder and I, Tabor McCallum, have been in this human spaceflight industry really our entire careers, which is a long time. And we really started out at a project that some of you may remember called Biosphere 2. This was way back in the early 80s when we were designing it. And then Tabor and I lived inside it for 2 years and 20 minutes. And it was a prototype space base. And the experience that we had been hearing about from astronauts, where they see Earth from space, and it's a deeply moving experience and really changes their whole experience of planet Earth in a way, right? Seeing that thin blue line of our atmosphere against that stark blackness of space. We had that very similar experience inside Biosphere 2, which was us being in a completely sealed environment that was sealed tighter than the International Space Station, and knowing that the plants around us were providing us with our life support system. And so from there, Tabor and I really wanted to find a way to take all of us to space in a truly accessible way. So the first thing we did was we had to go figure out what that actually meant. And so we started a company called Paragon with Grant Anderson that today has technologies on every orbiting human spacecraft. Technologies just went up on CST-100, on Orion, on International Space Station, every one of them. So we really got to understand that. Then the next thing we really needed to understand was the world of ballooning. Tabor grew up seeing these balloons that most people haven't heard of, but actually have been used for decades by NASA, ESA, and others for research. And so we needed to really demonstrate to ourselves that this balloon was really the way to go to take us all to space. So we were lucky enough to be introduced to Alan Eustace, who at the time was a Google executive. And he wanted to break the Red Bull Stratos jump. Now, you may recall Felix Baumgartner with that iconic image of him standing on the edge of the capsule with that ridiculous picture of the Earth around him in space and throwing himself out. Well, we didn't use a capsule. We greatly simplified it and used a spacesuit that our team built and tested and operated, the first new spacesuit at the time, built and operated in America in 40 years. And so we took him up under a spacesuit and we intentionally dropped him from 136,000 feet, which is higher than we're going to be taking our customers. And this really demonstrated for us that this is possible, that we can use these systems to repeatedly and reliably take people to space, not space diving back, but actually going up and down under the balloon. And then we also were able to fly a capsule that is heavier than the capsule that we're currently flying for a spaceship Neptune. And so really over our entire careers, we've sort of been solving the problems that got us to where we are today, where we're going to be taking all of us up to space very soon. So in many ways, this is a culmination of Tabor's and my entire life's work coming together into Space Perspective. And then, of course, the rest of the team who's on board. I mean, we are simply only 2 people in this amazing company that is being built by an extraordinary team of people who are at the top of the game in every aspect of the business.
Awesome. Eric, tell us a similar story to what inspired you to start Vertigo. And I know that you had an early pivot, so maybe tell us about that experience as well.
Absolutely. So yeah, I think it's important to know that there are 3 co-founders of Vertigo, and so we all share a strong passion for aviation and for making sure that aviation has a bright future. We all use air travel to move around the planet, connect with people. That's how, things and people get where they need to be quickly and efficiently. And we see some real challenges that aviation faces. And so the 3 co-founders, we had all been involved in various aspects of electrification of aerospace for about 10 years before starting Vertigo Aero. And we'd all crossed paths and we recognized that there was really a unique collision of events that happened in about 2017 that brought the technologies, the regulatory market, and the financial community together in a way where it really made sense to do practical things to go after this. And I think that's something that I see a lot in startups is there has to be this passion, but also you have to have the right market forces and you have to be looking at those market forces and understanding what's going on around you. And another thing that's interesting about us is the three of us that started the company, we were all kind of mid-career. We weren't the people coming straight out of graduate school. We were people who'd been executives, professors, et cetera, in companies for 20 years. And we recognized that there was really this chance to kind of go jump off the cliff, take the risk, and go do this. And that the timing was then or it wasn't going to happen. These forces that came together, it was really important to seize that moment. And so that was a big part of our inspiration to dive in and address some of the significant needs that we have to make aerospace more sustainable. And Ken, you're right, we did have an early stage pivot where we had, I would say, as we set forth to start up Vertigo, we were on the right path from a technology perspective. We were on the wrong path from a business model perspective. We initially were thinking about building an aircraft around the technologies, around the propulsion technologies that Vertigo is now world leader in. And what we recognized early on was that there was this gold rush of companies, there are hundreds of companies that have flooded into electric flight. And we stepped back and said, our biggest value that we can add to this market, it isn't designing one airplane, it's designing the power systems that can go inside hundreds of different designs of airplanes. And what we really need to do is leverage the key insights that we have and figure out a business model that gets that out there as broadly as possible and makes as big an impact as possible. And so we went from designing an aircraft around our innovations to focusing strictly on the innovations that we had inside the aircraft and getting those placed in as many of the other aircraft designs at other companies as possible. So we really kind of pivoted from having hundreds of competitors to having hundreds of customers. And that was a very empowering and enabling moment. And I think that that's something you see in a lot of successful companies is the ability to recognize where your value comes from and then constantly reassess how do you get the most out of that value? How do you make the biggest impact on the world? How do you make the biggest financial impact? And so it's been a really exciting journey.
And then, Enrique, similar to Eric, your company, if I understand right, is more on in the gold rush analogy. It's more of the picks and shovels and the enabling technology for a lot of the, eVTOLs and electric aircrafts, right? And so maybe talk about what motivated you to help found Ocelot and then what challenges you overcame early on.
Yeah, that's correct. At the beginning, we started with the challenging of solving electromagnetic interference in electronic device. So we used to help other companies design their products, solving the electromagnetic environmental effects, E3. And then we realized that that's mandatory to go for an electrification. And that's come up pivoting on our company when we start designing devices. And our first patent was related to a lightning trap device. Lightning strikes are a type of E3 phenomenon. So you believe that an aircraft can be hit by a lightning strike once per year, each aircraft in the world. That's a statistic. Sorry about that. And we designed this solution. We implemented in some aircraft. And after we move from this device, we decide to move to the electrification side. As just Eric mentioned, we have the call to action to move to a zero net emission solution. And that's the way we think we can put our brains, our thoughts to make our aviation and space technology much more environmental friendly. So that was the the pivoting origin of our company.
Awesome. And we heard you talk about this a little bit with Ocelot and setting up shop in, being in Brazil and then setting up shop in Daytona. But I think Jane, you have roots in Arizona with prior companies, and Eric, you have roots in Illinois, and Clint, I think you've been in Orlando a bit longer, but more or less we're a free agent for where to set up the company. So would love maybe Jane, you could take this first on what really motivated you to set up shop with Space Perspective in Central Florida and in the Space Coast.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. So we actually did a nationwide location search. We're going to locate at least the technical operations of Space Perspective. We still are thinking about where we put our headquarters and some of our customer experience. But from our technical operations, it ultimately made huge sense to be here right at Kennedy Space Center because the workforce is here, the local universities with Embry-Riddle and UCF and FIT, there's huge infrastructure there for us, which has been really great. Obviously, the lifestyle here, if you're an outdoorsy kind of person, is amazing. If you're a space geek like I am, how could you not love to walk outside the office and watch the rocket launches go off and occasionally get stuck in a traffic jam behind a booster? So, there's a lot of reasons, and ultimately it was an economic decision as well, being brought here by the state of Florida. So that's really an exciting transition for us. And now we're thinking about where do we put our headquarters? What do we do with our customers? Obviously, there's a great allure for being here for our customers where they can go and see Kennedy Space Center, which is super exciting, really grounded in the history of human spaceflight. We are a global company, and we will be having operations in other locations around the world as well. And then we're also looking at other parts of Florida for some of our experience, right? So when we think about how we're flying, we fly over water, we fly from a ship, we splash in the ocean. So you can envision us leaving from just off of Miami, for example, flying over the Keys and bringing people ashore in southern Florida. So there's a lot of reasons for us to be here, both technically and experientially, and Florida is well known for its experiential economy and for its hospitality.
Yeah, Eric, similar question. Why Orlando? I know the company has roots at Embry-Riddle, but obviously there's a intention to build out from there.
Absolutely. So, yeah, and I mentioned that there were three of us that co-founded the company, and so we had roots in Florida, Seattle, and Chicago that all came together at the same time. And as we looked at where to put the company, it was really kind of a no-brainer, and a lot of it comes down to talent. And Jane mentioned, all the great universities that we have here, and we're of course, in the research park at Embry-Riddle. But the biggest single factor was the talent that we could tap into immediately. And that's a huge part of starting any business is, it's not just the founders. You pretty quickly get beyond what the founders can do, and you've got to have a great team of people that has the right culture and the right drive and the right technical skills. And we were really able to find those great people here in Florida. And then I will say, second on the list, and team is the team and the people are absolutely number one. The business environment here is very positive. And so I would say the state of Florida and, Volusia County and, the university here where we are, they really want new startup businesses in the area. And they're really pushing to bring that into the economy. And you don't find that everywhere in the country, or in some cases where you find that, and I see a big contrast between Silicon Valley, for example, where we have a lot of customers and partners that we work with in Silicon Valley, and that's a place that does really encourage innovation. But Silicon Valley has gotten economically, I would say, very inefficient. And I look at what our partners in California are doing, and it's the cost structure, it's finding the talent now in that market, which has gotten almost too competitive. It's the regulatory environment. It's a lot easier to do business here, and we see that huge contrast on a daily basis as we're working with, our colleagues on the opposite side of the country. And we can move faster, we can do it better, and our cost structure is far lower, while at the same time our employees have a much better standard of living. So I would say it's a very attractive place to be located, and it's a very dynamic economy to be part of, that's really doing the right things to attract investment and to attract companies like us.
Awesome. And I'll maybe ask this question a different way to you, Clint, next, which is, I think the natural pushback that we hear after a bunch of people sing the praises of Central Florida and of being a Florida-based startup is that you can't raise capital here. But as I mentioned at the beginning, this panel, you guys have raised over $100 million. Ocelot, you're profitable. So completely different, model right now. But you've attracted national media attention. The companies on this panel have been featured by Time Magazine. I know, Jane, you've been on, I think I have a screenshot. Yeah, Next, which is, you being on Fox Business and having a lot of national coverage. So I think we hear the perception that you can't raise capital, you can't get national media coverage, you have a lot of challenges to overcome. And I know that you guys have raised from Raytheon and Mac Venture Capital, and Clint, you've raised from outside investors outside the state and inside the state. What do you think has worked, and how have you overcome some of those challenges? Kind of what advice would you have to founders that are basing operations here to still generate that national coverage and national investor interest?
Yeah. So I've been here in Lake Nona about 10 years, moved here from Germany. I was running the US operations from Germany for a company for quite a while, but really fell in love with the Lake Nona area. When I moved here, it was basically all cow pasture, and it's really become something that's truly amazing. And I think the challenge of Central Florida is that it does have an immature venture capital market, but I want to be a part of making that better, right? And it doesn't get better unless you get hometown success stories happening in the area. And so we've raised some great capital from Florida funders over in the Tampa area, and they've been unbelievable partners. We looked at, when we were staying here, either putting our headquarters in Winter Park or putting it in Lake Nona. We were able to get some great partnership and incentives and investment in the Lake Nona area that just made it all possible. I learned a hard lesson early in my career. Luckily, I wasn't the one that had the consequences of it, but I watched someone else make some pretty big mistakes. And that's locating your business in a place that's hard to get to, far away from an airport. And so we put our business 5 minutes from MCO. Everyone loves to come to Florida. It's an easy place to recruit. And then the other part was that for the phenomenology that we work in, we're kind of in this magic triangle of LiDAR and laser and optics capability between UCF and some of the defense primes, and Luminar in the area. Like, all these things were kind of the magic formula. And so what I would say is that we love Central Florida, and we chose Central Florida in spite of all of the challenges that exist. And we said, we're going to build our business our way. We're going to be successful in the area and help the community grow. And I really believe the community will pay that back to us eventually when it's able.
Awesome. And I love talking about this, but Clint also raised from my twin, Leonardo DiCaprio. But
I've never heard that version of the story before.
Yeah, my twin brother. Eric, Jane, what advice would you have for building a company here, but still managing to attract the national media and investor interest?
I guess what I would say is we've had great support from Florida-based investors, but I also don't think that founders should feel that they're limited in raising capital in their local market. I mean, our biggest investor is Raytheon, and they're based in the Northeast. We've got Silicon Valley money that's in the company. We've got investors from all around the country, and even some investors from outside the US. And one of the interesting trends that I've seen is that we're a bit of a contrarian company. We went into electrification when everyone was doing battery electric aircraft, and we were doing something different that was a bit of a contrarian message. And being a bit of and when we've been proven right. Now I would say we're solidly in the middle of where the market is, but that wasn't the case when we kicked things off 7 years ago. And I've seen that being a contrarian company and being in the Florida market has kind of worked well for us, in that the the conventional path was probably not going to be the right path for us anyway. Kind of the generic, let's go to Silicon Valley, let's be a part of that ecosystem. That doesn't really favor doing things in a contrarian manner, whereas being where we are here and tapping into the right investors, forward-looking investors who are digging a little bit deeper, they're willing to go wherever you are. And I don't think investors feel themselves limited for the most part in only looking in their backyard. And so, be a Florida-based company, but don't be shy about pursuing investment, from around the country or all over the world, because there are people that are interested in investing here. And if you've got the right business model and the right innovation, they're going to want to hear what you have to say.
Awesome. And then Jane, do you have anything to add on that? Because I mean, you built, I'd argue, not just a national brand, but an international brand.
Yeah, thank you, Ken. Well, look, so we have massive advantage in that space travel is incredibly sexy. So, let's just say that anytime we're doing something meaningful, the media is extremely interested in what we're doing.
Yeah.
So that is a huge leg up for us in terms of getting earned media and attention for the business. I will say though that we're still not known. So the fact that we've sold as many tickets as we have and has raised as much money as we have without being known is incredible. Look, I think that what is great is we're doing this panel by Zoom. There was a time where you had to, it was like, I'm going to go work Sand Hill Row. And you literally had to go and have your introductory meetings in person. We don't do that anymore, right? We do so much of fundraising online. Now, ultimately, if somebody's going to write you a big check, they're going to want to come and visit. But an enormous amount of what we do is done via Zoom, which has no borders. So for us, we've taken full advantage of being able to raise money remotely, which is amazing. It also is really important that you get strong lead investors.
Yep.
So we're really lucky that all our major investors, Prime Movers Lab, Deep Tech Fund, really understands what we're doing, huge support. We have a whole variety of space-focused investors that have jumped into several rounds. And then, of course, we also are an experience company. So Lightshed is a company that really focuses on the experience economy. And so we've been able to also attract from a whole variety of funds as well.
Yeah, I would, just to put my venture investor hat on, is it even if you're on Zoom, there's still like fundamental principles that you still have to overcome, and they change because it's Zoom, which is like you can build trust a little easier in person. So it's, finding the right lead investor, which signals credibility. It's getting warm intros from founders that can vouch for you, that overcomes that remote kind of nature of the connection. So yeah, you can build these national or global connections and do it through Zoom and then close it in person, but you just have to find different ways to kind of overcome those reservations that people might have. Um, I did want to, I know we're kind of coming up on time here. One way that, you know, I think we're all curious to hear what each of you think on the future of aerospace and space tech. And, you know, one thing for me, one way to kind of phrase it is like, what is the chat GPT moment for this industry? Like, if I go get my hair cut, right, my barber's like, hey, have you heard about what's happening in AI? And it's like, you know, it's on the tip of everybody's tongue, it's on the front of everybody's mind right now. And with space tech and aerospace, you know, it feels like there needs to be some breakthrough moment that gets the public really interested in what's going on. Enrique, I haven't heard from you in a while, so let's start with you. I'm really curious. Is it eVTOL? Is that what you think gets, you know, my barber talking about space tech and aerospace?
Yeah, I think urban air mobility is something that we have to tackle. That's a huge demand on that, and that, like I really like the way Jane explained about travel, space travel, and it's sexy as well to travel over everyone in the city, and if you can bring technology that will expand this mobility mindset would be tremendous. And I strongly believe that we are in an inflection point at this technology, and we should be resilient and work together as possible. And that's the fantastic thing about complex design. You cannot do that in 1 month. You cannot do that in 1 year. You have to put a real huge amount of effort during a certain time, and after 2 or 3 years, the requirements may change, and you have to be flexible on that. So it's complex, the design, and it's complex, the environmental that you are adding this technology. And I believe we have to overcome this challenge. That's what I'm foreseeing. Maybe this first wave of eVTOL technology will change a lot within 5 years, and that's exciting.
Clint, what do you think is kind of the breakthrough moment for this industry?
Yeah, so it's a really tough one because the space industry on one side of the coin has done a tremendously good job at being successful, and the other side it's done a terrible job. The good side is that we've been so successful as an industry in some cases in getting space-based technology into the lives of ordinary people that they don't even know that it's space-based technology. I mean, the most common example is GPS, and then you have all of the things that came out of the space program, but they don't know where it came from. The other side is we've done a terrible job marketing space as anything other than something of government and the very, very rich. And so I don't know what the answer is, Ken, but it's that thing when the ordinary person knows on a daily basis they're using space-based technology. And I don't know the answer, but that's going to be the key.
Eric?
Yeah, I would say our take on this is that as much as we inside our company are really passionate about airplanes, we happen to be pilots, we've owned aircraft. Generally, the general public doesn't care about aerospace technologies, and they don't care that much about airplanes. You know, the average person on an airline flight doesn't know what type of airplane they're on. They're all just kind of generic. What the general public cares about are missions. They care about the use case, not the airplane. And so I would say it's not so much the eVTOL aircraft, it's that I can now hop from JFK to Manhattan in 5 minutes. Okay, that's cool, you know, or that the military can do something that they could never do before, or that you can take a balloon to the edge of space. You know, those are missions, those are things people can do that involve aircraft, they involve electrification. But I think we're in a very technical field, and it's easy for people in aerospace to geek out on the technologies, and this is what we're doing, and this is how all of these things work. And that's really important, because if we don't do that, these things won't ever happen. But we also have to remind ourselves that for the general public to care, it needs to be something that impacts their lives, and it needs to be that end mission and use case. And it's the use case they care about, and not the aircraft or the power plant or the power distribution bus or anything like that. And so what's exciting to me is to see the use cases. And we said at one point very early in the founding of Vertigo that one of the things that we thought was going to be really cool is when people started coming to the table with use cases for our technologies that we hadn't yet thought of.
Hmm.
And since then, we've seen that, and that's really cool to see that we've invented capabilities, we've invented technologies, and now suddenly people are doing things with those that we never anticipated. And that's exciting. And I think we want to see that. That's when things go viral. That's when things really spread, is when it's not limited by the imagination of the founder. It gets out there in the world, and all of a sudden it becomes, your invention becomes all kinds of things that you did imagine and all kinds of things that you never imagined.
And then Jay and I intentionally left you last. Do you think the thing that makes the public really pay attention is the democratization and the increased accessibility here?
100%. So, we think of ourselves as a space lifestyle brand using space tech to give more people than ever before possible the most extraordinary experience of going to space, which before has been incredibly limited to extremely wealthy people, people who are incredibly trained. You would think that a lot of our customers, all of our customers, are extremely wealthy. In fact, some of them are saving up for this. This is already opening the doors to people you wouldn't necessarily have previously thought would be going to space. So now imagine once we're actually flying people to space, and they have had that wild experience that astronauts talk about, and they really do talk about it in these very impassioned terms. I've been lucky enough to talk to a lot of astronauts, people that have recently gone up on suborbital flights, and every single person talks about this as a deeply personal, deeply moving, and for many of them, transformational, like literally it changes their lives kind of experience. And the moment you have a lot of people coming back and talking about that, I mean, this is going to change everything, right? So, and it's not just the people that are going, it's also the brands we're working with. So we are extremely lucky to be working with Mercedes. They brought to market last year their electric Maybach. And so they're a foundational brand partner for us. And so that already is just giving us access to enormous numbers of customers to really show them what an experience like this can be like. Then more recently, a kind of experience that you may think, really, for a space company, you're working with a company like Mondelez, which is the second largest packaged goods company in the world. We did a wonderful program with them that's actually still ongoing with their Oreo cookie, which is the most eaten cookie in the world. I did not know that. So they brought to market the Space Dunk cookie, which is a specialized cookie. And so we worked with them to bring it to market it for them. And what was exciting for us as a business, I mean, there were several things, right? So as we think of ourselves, how do we really get space into the culture as sort of something that people are living and breathing? So this moment with the Space Dunk cookie and us giving tickets away to go to space through this campaign ended up on every late night show. So, that now, if you multiply that by many other partners with people actually being in space and seeing our planet from this vantage point and putting it out on social media all around the world, I mean, having people, the actual user social media output is far more powerful than anything we could do ourselves. And so, user content is going to just make this go crazy. And I do believe that this is going to not only grow the human spaceflight market, but I also think it's going to make people realize how critical the space ecosystem is to every part of our lives.
Yep. Awesome. I know we're coming up on time, and I think everybody more or less has a hard stop here. Maybe I'll volunteer you all for, if anybody has questions for anybody, reach out LinkedIn, reach out to me, maybe I can connect you. But just to kind of wrap up, really appreciate everybody's time here. And obviously super exciting stuff that you're building, and incredibly excited that you're building it here. So do want to thank you all for coming out, and encourage anybody who's on to please reach out to me, or anyone on the panel for any follow-ups here. But thank you all again.
Yep.
Excellent.
Thank you for having us,
Thanks a
Ken.
lot, Ken. Really appreciate it.
Awesome.
Bye.
All right. Thank you all.
Thanks, Ken. Thanks, everyone.